Let's get ready to rumble!
Hello and welcome to Netflix vs. Cinema, the podcast that has it all going on today. We had somebody rushing back from Plymouth to catch a ferry so they could be on the podcast. We had somebody going for a walk and just about getting in. We had somebody whose afternoon totally got turned upside down because of childcare issues, and therefore we have an extra host on the podcast tonight. My name is Tosin. I am the host, and I will be taking you through the next hour when we go through things that we have seen at the cinema recently, weigh them up through things that we have seen at home recently, weigh them all out of 5, and see where our money has been better spent this week. Joining me on the Isle of Wight, as always, is Sharon Brolin.
Hello.
The woman who will not see anything animated no matter how much you pay her, beg her, or drag her. And Shaun Harris.
Shaun Harris. And I'm actually in Bournemouth today.
Okay, sure. The man who did not have to catch a ferry because he went back to Bournemouth today is in Bournemouth, and this is the man who will see everything. You don't have to pay him because we definitely don't. We definitely don't. So we don't have to pay him. So this week in the cinemas, what have we seen?
Sharon?
I've only seen one. I was planning to see Firestarter, but because the weather was so nice, we decided to go for a walk instead. So I have seen Father Stu.
Father Stu.
I looked at Father Stu, and I'm not sure it's going to be my type of thing, but I probably will end up seeing it. I shall rely on your review, Sharon.
Yeah, see, another thing. I saw Father Stu on my I saw that it was released. I wasn't actually sure whether it was in cinemas or whether it was just on TV. And I looked at it and I kind of went, I feel like I know the whole story anyway, just from the trailer.
I didn't see the trailer.
Yeah, and so okay. So what have we seen at home?
Okay, well, I've seen Without Remorse, Amazon, an Amazon original, Tom Clancy adaptation.
Yep.
Yeah. And I've seen at the cinema. I have seen Firestarter.
Okay.
And Everything Everywhere as well. But then I think we've all seen that now, haven't we?
I don't think you've seen Everything Everywhere. Okay. Yeah, but I have seen to give it its full title, Everything Everywhere All at Once. So, all right, and let's see. So you saw Without Remorse at home. Sharon, what did you see at home?
At home, I've seen two things. On Amazon Prime, I saw the series The Outer Range.
Oh, yeah?
Ooh.
Josh Brolin
and a Western with what looks like alien-y things.
Yeah, and a big hole in the prairie. And
Yep.
I've seen on Sky a film I missed at the cinema called Last Letter from Your Lover.
Oh,
That's Letter from Your Lover. All right, if I may, I'm going to use my editorial powers and say, can we have something on? Can we have Outer Range, please?
Yeah.
We bring Outer Range up, and we can have a little bit of a thing, a 1 minute thing about Last Letter to Your Lover. And I saw a film that I've been trying to talk about for weeks, but keep getting sidetracked. It's Freaks on Netflix. A film called Freaks on Netflix. Right, cool. So let us kick off. First and foremost with, I think, because of the big film that was around last week, which was Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, and we mentioned that we think, well, I thought anyway, that it was absolutely genius programming to release this film in this country the week after Doctor Strange, because this has been out in America since last year, but we're only just getting it now. And I think the people who released it, they might, I have a suspicion that they heard some preview stuff about Doctor Strange and they went, yeah, this is going to be a good
this is the time.
This is the time to do it. This is the time to do it. And so the week after we have one big massive multiversal movie, we have another big massive multiversal movie. This stars Michelle Yeoh, and you meet Michelle Yeoh, and she's a lady called Evelyn. She is she's an immigrant into the United States. They never say where, but she does speak Chinese. They don't say where she comes from, but she does speak Chinese. Her and her husband Waymond, who is played by Ke Huy Quan, who you might remember from Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom and The Goonies.
Wow.
Yeah, it was so cool. It was quite an affecting interview I heard with him that he did with Empire Magazine for their podcast, and where he was talking about the fact that people are like, where have you been for 38 years? And he was like, well, after The Goonies and Indiana Jones, he had no roles. There were no roles for an Asian actor. There was nothing that he could find. So he quit acting because he just couldn't find anything and he couldn't get any roles. And it's like, and now at the age of 50, he's kind of finally admitted to himself that he really does love acting, and he's come back in, and this is the first thing he's in. And for him, he thought it was like an absolutely good. But anyway, that is like an emotional reason. Okay, fine, we'll get you some more food. That is an emotional reason to like this film, even to like this film already. That the fact that it brings us back Data and Short Round, like to who I don't know about you, Shaun, but I feel like he hasn't changed that much.
I guess so. Yeah, he hasn't really. It's quite amusing actually. But,
he hasn't changed that because you look at him and you can still see Data and Short Round in him, even though the man's 50. So they own a laundromat somewhere in the States. And the film kicks off with this sequence where she's doing her taxes. Her father has flown over from, I don't think they ever mention it, but it's kind of intimated that it's China. Her father's flown over from China. It's going to be Chinese New Year. She's trying to organize a Chinese New Year party in the laundromat. She has customers who are yelling and screaming and saying, "Where are my clothes?" And all these things. And it has this I think the first 10 minutes or so, just sort of ratchet up the tension. There's an audit that's coming up, and they think that the person who's going to audit the laundromat and audit the business doesn't really like Chinese people, so they're not entirely sure. And it just comes up as this sort of like tension builder. The first 10 minutes of it are extremely tension-filled. Then, when they are going to the audit office, you're also introduced to her daughter. Her daughter is in a same-sex relationship, and the daughter wants to tell the grandfather, and she's like, no, you can't tell so she has all these things on her plate. She has everything on her plate, and this is really well communicated that her life is stressful. And it just keeps going and going. And then in the way, when they are going to the audit office to get audited by an auditor played by Jamie Lee Curtis, all of a sudden something happens and her husband seems to change, and then he comes up and he becomes like this action star, and he tells her, look, this is going to happen, here's a list of instructions, blah 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 blah, do this, and he just tells her all these things, and she's like, Maywan, what's up with you, what's going on with you? And it turns out that he tells her this story about how he is from another universe, and he has just transferred into her husband, that this is not her husband. It's like, I am not your husband, I'm from another universe, you are our last hope to beat the multiverse, because there's this thing called Jobutopaki that's trying to take over the entire multiverse and trying to destroy everything. You are our last hope. And there's then he gives her a series of instructions, and the last thing on there is, don't forget to breathe. And I read somewhere that is like an instruction to the audience, don't forget to breathe, because at that point, after the don't forget to breathe moment, the film goes crazy. The film goes crazy. It goes into the multiverse. There's all sorts of stuff that happens, and I think there's so much stuff that happens in this film that I could tell you some of the things that happen, and it wouldn't really be a spoiler because you wouldn't have a clue how this fits into the story whatsoever. Let's just say that there's a scene in which somebody gets beaten to death with 2 dildos. But
Sharon blinked her eyes then.
yes, I know, and it's not even necessarily the crazy thing. But this film takes the idea of the multiverse and has a lot of fun with it. So I think that's what I'm going to say as a setup for what this film is about. Shaun, what did you think of Everything Everywhere All at Once?
Yeah, it was. I thought it was. Yeah, it was pretty crazy, eh? Pretty crazy. I thought Michelle did a really good job of the different characters. Excellent job, actually, more than, because I can find sometimes she can get on my nerves a little bit. I think, like Crazy Rich Asians and films like that. And she's very much, but she showed her real versatility in this, I think, to play. Yeah. Because obviously, in each universe, the people that live in our universe, if you like, live in all these other different universes, but they follow different paths. Yeah. And basically, it's like, I could have been this, I could have been a film star, I could have been a politician, I could have been president, I could have been. It all
falls on decisions people make. So it's like, okay, you decided to stay at home. That's one universe. You decide to go with this guy. That's another universe. And like different paths that they end up on. Yeah.
Who's the actress that plays the bad one, or
plays Jobutopaki?
Yes.
That is.
I don't want to give away with what.
I know. I know what you're aiming at.
Because I thought she was great.
Yeah, Stephanie Sue.
I reckon she was. Because to start off with, I was like, no, I was really impressed with her perform.
She's really good. I've only ever seen her in The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. I've seen her in Marvelous. That's the only thing I've ever seen her before in, and she's brilliant in that. But yeah, Stephanie Sue, she's quite good. Sue spelled HSU. But from having friends who have names spelt like that, Chinese friends who have names, I know that the H is kind of silent.
Yeah.
Like I remember having a friend called Si Xing, and I spent ages trying to pronounce it. And I'm going, Sierra, and they're like, no, you sound weird. It's C.
So, but my feelings on the film, I won't talk too much because you're talking about it, but yeah, I mean, it was pretty much all over the place. But I think it sort of worked. I sort of enjoyed it. You know, it was like I wasn't sure I was going to, and Jamie Lee Curtis as well. What a scream! What a scream! Yeah, brilliant. Fair play to her. You know, hot dogs and everything. You know.
Oh, good lord! The hot dog fingers.
That bit I found a bit. I don't know.
Weird.
Talk about taste or whatever, but.
I think I found that bit weird, but it's supposed to be weird. So the idea is that the more Evelyn experiences the multiverse, the more she realizes that if there is a concept that she can think of, there's a universe in which it exists. and one of the universes that she thinks of is one where people have hot dogs for fingers. So yeah, it won't make sense. It won't make sense until you see the film, and even then, it might not make sense. So, even after you see the film, it might not make sense. But so with that, I think obviously there is the elephant in the room, which is we've already had one multiverse movie. Everybody's going to be comparing that multiverse movie to this one, saying which one is better. First of all, I would say that I was shocked at how many concepts of the multiverse carried over between the two films. Like there's something that's a key concept in the Doctor Strange film that ends up being a key concept in this film, without which this film doesn't really work. And I was kind of like, it made me go, hang on, is this like a common thing in multiverse lore or multiverse fiction that I have just missed? Because I didn't know this was a thing. I didn't know this is, but it's in both. I was kind of like, this is really. It's kind of as if they might have read that script and they have gone, all right, cool. We are going to make a multiverse movie, but without the need to tie into anything else, without the need to be commercial, without the need to make this big thing. So they almost make a whole bunch of little films within this one film. Like one of the universes that they have, I've never seen a Wong Kar-wai film, but from the little I've seen, there's one of the universes that they're in that looks like it would like a Wong Kar-wai film. The document, I mean not the documentary, the dialogue, everything like that. It's like I could show you a scene from that section of the film, show you scenes from the other sections of the film, and it's like you would think there were two different films. They have the same actors in them. Apart from that, you think there were two different films. And I think it does a whole bunch of philosophical things as to saying if let's say if you made a choice and one choice ended up in one universe and another choice ended up in another universe, does anything you do matter then? If you have a choice, does it matter because that universe is still going to exist somewhere? And it goes a bit philosophical. There's a bit with rocks.
Yeah, that was bizarre.
There's a bit with rocks.
That was bizarre. That was random. That was so random.
There's a bit where they emulate 2001, the beginning of 2001, to explain why people have hot dog fingers. So you can. And I think the directors of this film, they're called Daniels because it's Daniel Kwan and Daniel Scheinert. And their previous film was a film called Swiss Army Man. It's the film you might know as the one that stars Daniel Radcliffe, Harry Potter himself, as a farting corpse. So they have a weird out there sensibility, and they said that in this film, I think they'd been given a bigger budget and thought, let's just do it. Let's just throw everything in there. It's the multiverse. Therefore, any idea we want, we can throw it at the screen. And the funny thing is how they managed to pull it back a bit towards the end to something that is vaguely coherent, something that actually where it's all this it's all this big multiversal madness. You're going in there and you're doing all these different things, and you have one universe that's rocks, and you have one universe where everybody has things for fingers, and you have one universe that's post-apocalyptic, and you can go into this thing, and you can all of a sudden and there's serious elements of the Matrix in here. There's at least
I'm sure there's a lot of nods to other films that if you watched it again, you could there must be massive.
There must be a massive amount of nods to other films, but there's some bits that are very, very obviously Matrix.
Yeah.
and
Bill and Ted, I'm sure, is in there somewhere.
Yeah, and so you have all these things, and then after all this and then they put the philosophy in there, and after all that, it comes down to it, and it's actually a family drama. and the fact that they might bring it back to a family drama, it needs to be acknowledged. It needs to be acknowledged that they pull off something crazy here. I don't think that they were trying to make something that was too commercial, even though it's done very, very well. I think mostly because of this comparison between Doctor Strange and Everything Everywhere All at Once. So I really liked it. However, I am not as oh, it's all random, it's all brilliant as most people who are talking about it, and I would give it a 3.
Well, Tosin, as much as I thought it was okay, I did have. I mean, there was a couple of times when it, I don't know what the word is, where it was cliched or what, but there was a few moments that I found myself getting a little bit like, oh, come on, let's move on a bit, a bit.
Same
so
here.
on the whole, thinking about it, I would probably agree with you totally that it's a 3-star film. For me, yeah. You know, it was great. It had some terrific elements, it had some terrific acting, terrific scenery, lovely scenery. But yeah, for me, it gets a 3 as well.
Yeah, and the best Michelle Yeoh performance that we've seen.
Yes.
Like, yes, I think outside of Asian cinema, outside of Hong Kong cinema, the best Michelle Yeoh performance we've seen is the best thing that she's done in English. Because as you were saying, with all the other roles that she usually gets, like, you know, you're talking about Crazy Rich Asians. I mean, she is playing an archetype. She's playing the Tiger Mother. She's playing the kick-ass Chinese agent. She's playing but in this one, she's playing a character that actually has an arc, and you think, oh man, they should give Michelle Yeoh more stuff like this to do. But I agree. Obviously I agree with you, Shaun, because I already said it. I think it's a 3-star film because it's crazy. It's all over the place, but there are points at which the craziness does get to you. Like, I think for me, it got to me, and I was like, okay, for goodness sake, settle down and tell me something that I can rely on to move the story forward. Stop just throwing stuff at the screen. It's great. The action is amazing. There's bits where Ke-Huy Quan totally, and I was looking going, he looks like Jackie Chan. Like, the bits where he looks like Jackie Chan, like around about the Operation Condor era. Operation Condor, Jackie Chan with the sort of, like, you know, the waist belt and everything like that. I was like, good Lord.
As I say, I found the substitute nunchuck films a bit sort of unnecessary, just for laughs, and you know, so that was. I don't think that. I think that was a little bit. That was probably a bit in bad taste, I think.
Yeah. That bit was kind of like it was
unnecessary.
Well, you could say unnecessary, but you could also say that these guys have committed to making something random, and so they went random.
Yeah, that's true.
And so they went random. All right, cool. So now we are gonna go away from cinema. We're gonna go over to our home viewing vein. And Sharon, you are going to talk to us about Outer Range. Outer Range, starring Josh Brolin as a grizzled cowboy, and I think we can guarantee that in this particular TV show presentation, we are not going to hear one word of somebody beaten to death somebody else with a sex toy.
I had to think then, because there's all sorts of random things going on in that. Outer Range. Not that. How do I describe Outer Range without going into spoiler territory? So I'll start off with what I think is safe. It's set in modern day North America. I don't remember it's in Northwest America, where rolling mountains and prairies, where there's an indigenous population, And then there's the settlers, who became sort of the big ranchers. And this particular region is dominated by two major landholders. There's the abbots and their neighbours, who literally have been there since the land was settled, as it's called. So the ranch has been there for 150 odd years, which is a long time in American West. And on on the abbot land, which is owned by Josh Brolin and his family, there's this mysterious, basically it's just a hole, but it's just not a normal hole, because you can't see through it or down it. It sort of has like an iridescent almost film on it, but it's not liquid, it's just like it just moves. So it looks bottomless. It's just this void. You look into this void, you don't see anything below it, and things that get thrown into the hole have a habit of reappearing, but somewhere else.
Ooh.
And not just somewhere else physically, but somewhere else in time as well.
Oh.
And so this hole is like a symbol of the fact that something strange is going on, sort of temporarily, in this ranch, and that things aren't quite what they seem. And so you have a cast of characters, and you're never quite sure basically where they stand in time or where they stand in reality. Everyone appears to be all sort of perfectly normal, but then every now and then you suddenly think there's something not right. And so it does play around with the idea of maybe time not necessarily being linear in this particular place. And there's some strange events, like basically there's a bison, or North American buffalo, that keeps appearing at different points, sort of symbolically, at different points in the drama. And it's noticeable about this particular bison is that it's got two arrows in its side. And these arrows are obviously old, they're fletched, eagle feathers, and they've got what looks like it's a flint arrowhead at the top of it. And this bison, with these two arrows sat in its side, just randomly is like wandering the range, and you're never quite sure if it's someone's been using it as target practice or whether this bison is somehow just out of time. And so the story that's the sort of the overarching thing. It's like there's something going on in this ranch that we don't really quite know, and then it does a bit more gets revealed as the drama gets on. But basically, Josh Brolin's character, his name is Abbott. He lived with his wife, his two sons, and his granddaughter. And his daughter-in-law mysteriously disappeared about a year before. And everyone's been investigating her disappearance, whether it's a missing person, whether she was kidnapped, or whether she's been murdered and they've hidden her body.
Okay.
So there's this mystery that has been like plaguing the family. So all of the members of the family are like in different ways reacting to this disappearance. And they have a rivalry with the next door neighbour, whose Will Patton is like the patriarch of that family, and he's got like three really sort of weird sons. And without giving too many spoilers, during the first episode, one of those sons gets killed in a fight.
Oh.
And this one event sends ripples through the rest of the series, as in either, because of the nature of the fight, they conceal it, and then things become revealed that maybe should have kept secret.
Okay, I've cracked it, Sharon. The son who gets killed is the bison.
Bison. Yeah. Yeah. So it's not a story that you can just tell as linear, because it's not. It plays with time, it plays with your comprehension, it plays with different people turn up and you're not quite sure that they're significant, but you don't know quite why. Okay. And then there's like the sheriff is a Native American woman who's living with her female partner and her daughter, who's investigating the death of one of the sons. And again, they're like almost like out of time, but you never quite know what.
I'll tell you what, Sharon. Like this is turning out to be a much more interesting show than I thought it was, because I saw the poster or the banner rather on and you saw Josh Brolin, and it looked like, Josh Brolin's doing his grizzled cowboy thing. It's kind of like, and there's like this signal in the sky above him, and you're like, okay, maybe they're mixing it up a bit. But I thought this would be a lot more straightforward than you mentioned, because even what you were saying, I was like, what, you mean this was set in old times? Because I didn't pick that up at all. But then again,
in modern day America, but it does. But there are links to obviously the past, and then you find out exactly what those links are, and later on in the show.
Okay.
And people have said, one of the characters who stalks the sheriff says, you know, I came across a megalodon in a cave once. And then I go, we're thinking he's obviously delusional. But then as the thing goes on, you're thinking, maybe he did see a megalodon. Possible, because strange things do happen. And you see things, you're thinking, because when you're watching it, you're not sure whether if what's real and what's not real and what's in time or that you leave. That's one of its strengths, and it's what makes it quite confusing and frustrating as a viewer.
Okay.
Because sometimes you just don't know what's going on, and you're thinking there's a lot of rich symbolism here, and I'm probably not reading it as much as the filmmaker intended, because it's one of those things you probably need to go back and see if you picked up on any clues that you might have missed on the first viewing.
All right. Okay, so two questions. Yeah. Oh, no, rather two things anyway. It's funny, but nowadays, whenever anybody says the word megalodon, I immediately imagine that in Jason Statham's voice. It's a megalodon.
I mean, that's just, I'm the same. Wait,
said megalodon. I was like, what? No, you did not say Jason Statham was in this. You just said the word megalodon. That's it. Okay, number two, because it sounds like the kind of thing that we can't talk that much more about before ruining totally, because what you said now has made me go, ooh, maybe I should go see this. This is a lot more complicated than I thought it was going to be, a lot more interesting than I thought it was going to be. What did you think of it, and how many stars did you give it?
Yes, I enjoyed it, but again, I feel like you need to quite focus on it, because I'm sure it's riddled with hints and clues that you just miss. And sometimes I got really quite frustrated with it, thinking, I can't get to grips with this. It was intriguing, certainly well made. Some of the characters are just completely off their tree, so you don't know whether that. So there's lots going on. So I thought it was going to be like a sort of Western science fiction type thing. It's not. There's much more to it than that. Okay. So I thought it's really good, but frustratingly so, and because it didn't answer all the questions by the end of it. So the whole series ends, and you're going, well, I still don't know what's going on in certain aspects.
Oh, right. So how many episodes are there?
Sorry.
How many episodes are there?
8 episodes.
8
so
episodes.
Because it is so good, it's one of those ones I think you probably have to revisit. I would be inclined to give it a 4.
Okay.
Because I think it's strong, and I think it's there are moments where you just go, but I think it probably, as time goes on, I just hope they don't overdo it, and then, you know, with like season 3 and 4, you suddenly go, you had all this promise.
You had me intrigued, but when you said they don't resolve things by the end, I immediately saw Westworld. And I remember Westworld, the first season, watching that all the way through and going, oh yeah, that kind of works, that's quite good. But I remember saying that if they don't resolve some things by the end of the first season, and some pretty major things, if they don't answer these questions by the end of the first season of Westworld, I'm not coming back for season 2, because it's going to be like Lost. And sure enough, they didn't resolve those things by the end of season 1, and I watched like the first 2 episodes of season 2 and went, no, forget it. No, my life is too short. I've got other things to do.
Yeah, it does happen when they try to over-egg a series, doesn't it, really? I was a Punisher.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, there are 2 big reveals which are satisfying in that they answer a lot of questions, but then they set up enough for the next season. So I'm hopeful that they can they've answered enough so you're not going, but you never answered that, mate. So one of the mysterious characters, you do know who they are by the end, which is like, yes, if they kept you dangling, it would have been like, you know what? That was 8 hours. But so I would give it a 4, but I would say it's baffling and confusing and frustrating, but it is still very good.
Okay, I might just sort of like I might watch the first season and then just dump it because you're beginning to say some things that are like that are essentially you're beginning to say some things that have the same effect on me as if I say it, Sharon, it's animated. Like, you're beginning to say some things that are hitting some of my buttons that make me go, okay, no. All right, cool. But that's it. That's 4 stars for Outer Range on Amazon Prime. All right, cool. And so now we go back over to cinema. And because we usually give ourselves 5 minutes to review these films, but because Everything Everywhere All at Once, where more than one of us sees it, it's difficult to do that in 5 minutes. So we've given that a little bit more time. But now we're going to try and do 5 minutes on each of these other things that we have to talk about.
Yeah, we could do that.
Yeah, we can try, Shaun. We can try.
Well, yeah. But you know me.
We can try. Okay, so now, Shaun, at the cinema, you saw Firestarter. Now,
I did see Firestarter. Yes.
This is another adaptation of a Stephen King story, which was done sometime in the 80s with Drew Barrymore in the lead role. As we were mentioning about, like, you know, Drew Barrymore, and talking about the fact that the picture, if anybody can see this online, you can see the picture that Shaun has behind his head has not Drew Barrymore, but just her doppelganger. It's a bit like Haley Bennett, and how Haley Bennett and Jennifer Lawrence look really much alike. But anyway, so Firestarter, tell us a little bit about this, and tell us about what you thought.
How it was. Okay, well, I've not seen, believe it or not, I've not seen the Drew Barrymore film, so I can't really compare it to the Drew Barrymore film. So I've gone to see this as a sort of standalone movie. Basically, it's a couple of students, university students, that were experimented on, and then they get together, they got married together, and they have someone. They have a daughter who's got some special gifts, and I mean, so, but it doesn't. The issue I had with it was suddenly the daughter. You have flashbacks to this sort of start of the relationship during while everything's going on, and basically the couple have tried to escape from this place.
No, they were experimenting.
They've taken the daughter with them, and they've been on the run. So basically, they're on the run. Obviously. Oh yeah, what's this place called? It's called The Shop. So The Shop, basically, where they do experiments a bit, you know, like we've seen in other things before. So
Wolverine.
Yeah, those that type of thing. And there's an X-Men one, isn't there, where they go to a school and they get. But then, like, I sort of, and then you've got this girl. I guess I don't know if she's 11, 12, 13, maybe, who's got these powers. But I was thinking, well, if you've been on the run. You know, with these powers, been trying to keep them down, but the father's got because they've got like other powers as well.
So the father and the mother have powers, and
the father and mother have powers, and they have this daughter that's got other powers. But it goes straight. I'm
guessing from the title of the film, she has some sort of pyromaniac powers.
Yeah. She's a bit like the Human Torch, I guess, or the Pyro in the X-Men number 3 runs. You know, so if you can do that sort of stuff and melt people and what have you. Anyway, basically. They find out something happens, and they find out, and the mum and dad get captured, and the girl runs off through psychic phenomenon and other stuff. She manages to find out, and then there's this other character in it who can sort of is a bit teleconnected, says, "Oh, she's coming." Yeah. And it goes into pretty standard fare, shall I say? But I have to say. I didn't mind it. It really, in fact, the main issue was what happened to the period between when she was a baby. There is a little bit with the baby that you see, but that's it. It's the baby, and then it's the adolescent, the teenager thing. So all that time.
You're saying that there's stuff you would have figured out in that time.
Yeah.
That it doesn't make sense that you've got to this stage and you still don't know.
That's it. And anyway, so as it goes and it sort of ends, the ending let me down a little bit because, again, we talk about these consistency film things, don't we? Where we say, like, everything all through them, everything goes starts off this. You say, oh, yeah, okay. And then it's like, that's not consistent with what would happen. That's not what would happen. There's no way that would possibly happen. Why would all the way through this movie, you've got this thing, this conflict, and it's like, what? So anyway, yeah. But I have to say, back to it, I know we're short on 5 minutes. I have to say, I did quite enjoy it. I quite enjoyed the action thing. I mean, and what was really interesting was the theme music. It was like, and it was, I thought, God, who's that? I recognise that. And it was John Carpenter. Yeah. So I saw John Carpenter did, so that sort of cheered me up a little bit because I'm a big John Carpenter fan. So, and he did a Stephen King adaptation, didn't he? Christine, which gets panned as one of his Christine about the car, the 1958 Plymouth Fury. Yeah. And I really enjoyed that, but a lot of people didn't like that. And I got a feeling this is going to be the same thing. People may not like this, but I didn't mind it. I quite enjoyed it. And
Okay. So other people don't matter, Shaun. We don't care about them. We care about you.
That's it.
And we care about you, and we care about what you thought. So yeah. So what did you think? What did you
Well,
think?
I had enough in it to enjoy it. I mean, maybe my expectations were very low when I went to see it, but on the whole, I really enjoyed it. So it gets a solid 3 for me. I'll give this one a 3.
Oh, yeah, this is 1 to 3. Which
And it was because of the start and the end. I had those issues again with the consistency in movies.
Well, the truth is, I wasn't expecting anything more than that from this. I wasn't expecting anything more than that, and I've got to be. I'm kind of surprised that they've made this film.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, why this film? Why of all the Stephen King stories, of all the ones that have been made before? How did you land on this? How did you land on this and say, okay, we're going to do this one again? But they
did it with Pet Sematary, didn't they? They did it with Pet Sematary. And
Well, no, it makes sense because there's people who are still having nightmares about that stuff. So it I could understand why they did that. But Firestarter, they've remade it but they've given it a big kind of like, we're back in cinemas. Come watch this thing. And it's not like let's say like a Stephen King adaptation like Gerald's Game, which they made but was on Netflix, which is a very good film. But anyway, I've been told off. We know I have been told off on YouTube for reviewing other films in the review of another film. So this is about Firestarter. That's what we're talking about. So 3 stars for Firestarter. Yes. And now we go over back to Netflix for a film that sounds in concept very similar to what you just spoke about. So this is a film called Freaks. And a couple of weeks ago, I reviewed a film called Oxygen. And that was because I've seen a What Culture list on 10 awesome sci-fi movies that you've never watched. And Oxygen was on that, and I watched that. And Freaks was also on that, and I watched that, and I was like, okay, cool. Yeah, let's see if it keeps going. So this also has a young girl in it. This also has a young girl who has parents who have like, and when the film starts, who have parents who go on the run, who who have some sort of like powers or anything like that. This has all those things in it. And when the film starts, you see this girl with her dad, and they live in this dilapidated old house. Like, there's holes in the ceiling and all that sort of stuff. And he just sort of like she's like saying, oh, can we go outside? Can we go outside? He's like, no, we can't go outside. The bad people are outside. You can't go outside. The girl's about 7 years old and she can't go. And the father is played by Emil Hirsch. And he's like, you can't go outside. And don't. He keeps saying things like, look, I can only protect you when I'm awake. When I'm not awake, and whatever happens, like all the windows they're not boarded up, but they have like newspaper sellotaped over them. And there's things on the news, like when switch on the news is like, remember to report these people. If you see these people, report them. And then there's like this logo, and they say, look in their eyes, look in their eyes. If you look in their eyes, you'll be able to know. Report these people. And he's like, the bad people are outside. And so this film, for a while, it gives you a real case of what is going on. Why is he so afraid of her going outside? Is he actually a bad person who's just keeping her inside for his own purposes? And then there's this whole thing about ice cream. An ice cream van shows up at the front door, and she really, really wants to go and get ice cream. She really, really wants to go and get. He's like, no, we can't get ice cream. We can't get ice cream. And he keeps telling her stories about how, okay, remember, if anybody asks you, this is not your name. Your name is this. This is what's going on. Blah blah blah. That person across the road, that's going to be your mom. That person across the road, that's going to be your sister. And she's like, and so once she sees her sister going and get an ice cream, and she's like, she just starts saying, bring me an ice cream, please bring me an ice cream, please bring me an ice cream. And then the person who she's been told is a sister just turns around, looks at her, and then just sort of like walks towards her to give her the ice cream at the front door. And her dad is like, what did you do? Yeah, I told you never to open the door, and all that kind of stuff. And so then she's asleep at night, and she wakes up, and she goes to her closet, opens up the closet, and there's something else. Like, her closet changes. So there's a whole bunch of stuff going on, and I feel like if you watch the film does a very good job of giving this thing out to you, like what's going on. I think it's not a spoiler to say that there's people in this film with powers, but I feel like this film is, if you didn't have a whole bunch of money, if you didn't have a Marvel-sized budget to make a film about people with powers, this is a brilliant way to do it. It's kind of ground level. It talks about this one person thing and the one father and daughter and how they're trying to live in a world that doesn't particularly want them. I thought it was really, really, really well done. The only gripe I had with it, and it is a bit of a major gripe, is, have you seen The Incredibles?
Yes.
You know how in The Incredibles you have Jack, the kid, Jack. And you know how there's a whole joke about the fact that Jack's powers aren't really defined because they don't really know because he's like a kid and he has all. And in The Incredibles, they make a joke of it. But in this film, the special gift that this girl has that everybody is going for, it seems to keep changing. And it seems to be that, oh, we need this to happen in the story at this point in time. It would be really, really helpful to have this. Guess what? She has that power. Okay, now we need this. Guess what? She can do something with that as well. And I was just kind of like, and so I was watching it going, I'm really enjoying this, but what exactly is her power? What exactly can she do? Because it seems it's just anything that can sort out the problem you had in the script. But for a large time, it's really good. It has a good cast. But you can see that it's like an indie movie that just happened to get some. It has Bruce Dern. Bruce Dern shows up in it. He has Emma Hirsch, as I said before. Oh. There's an actress called Grace Park who shows up as well, who I think is really, really good. She was in Battlestar Galactica, but he also has a whole bunch of people that you've probably never heard of before. And it's the kind of film that if they told you it was filmed in Australia or in Canada or something, you'd be like, yeah, I totally see that, because I can see that they didn't have a budget, but the way in which they used the budget that they had, I thought was kind of was pretty genius, and I really, really liked it. So I would give it a 4, even though I have a problem in that it just has this. You know, when I remember when we saw the film with Will Smith where he was fighting himself. He was fighting his younger self.
Gemini Man.
That was it. The Gemini Man. I remember when we saw the Gemini Man, and we were talking about the fact that in the Gemini Man, like anytime they had a problem, Benedict Wong would show up. We need to fly to Colombia. I have a plane. We need to go underwater. I have a submarine. We need to go to space. I've got a space shuttle. That kind of thing. And this film does have a little bit of that kind of thing where it just seems like things were changing just to sort of like sort out problems that were in the script. But I would give it a 4. I think I said, yeah, I'll give it a 4. Yeah, but it would probably be higher if it wasn't for that problem. But anyway, that was Freaks on Netflix. I would recommend watching it. I would actually like to see what you think about it. I think both of you would enjoy it. But now we go back to cinema and we see the film. We talk about the film that Sharon, you saw, and this was Father Stu.
Yes.
So tell us about Father Stu.
Father Stu is a biopic based on a real gentleman. It's someone I'd never heard of before. His name is Stuart Long, and this is a gentleman I believe it's sort of like late 60s, early 70s it's set. He was an amateur boxer who then decided when his boxing career ended that he was going to move to California to become an actor. And he was working in a supermarket, and then he saw this beautiful young woman. And in pursuit of her, he found out that she was a member of the local Catholic church, and that in order to sort of ingratiate himself with this woman, he decided to start going to this church. And the film progresses, and basically he has a life crisis, this traumatic event, and instead of just sort of playing lip service to the church in order to get closer to this lady he fancies, he actually has this sort of epiphany and decides that at the age of sort of 40-something, a man who's never sort of basically had a regular job, or who'd been in and out of trouble, he was a drinker, he had all sorts of myriad problems, he decides he's actually going to become a Catholic priest. And then other events happen, and there's all sorts of crises in his life, but ultimately, basically, he does become a Catholic priest, and to the amazement of everyone who'd ever known him, basically. And he then becomes this enormously popular parish priest for the rest of his life. And so that's it in a nutshell. It's a very simple biopic where you follow him through this journey from boxer to clergy. And he is played by Mark Wahlberg.
Yep.
And his sort of dysfunctional, estranged father is played by Mel Gibson. And there are various other actors who sort of feature in his life. I can't remember the name of his mother, the actors who played his mother, but again, someone you certainly know her when you saw her. But her name has escaped me momentarily.
Oh, Jackie Weaver, is it?
Jackie Weaver.
It is Jackie Weaver.
Yeah, it's a Jackie Weaver. It is Jackie Weaver.
All right, cool. Yeah, because
not the counsellor Jackie Weaver, but the actress.
yeah, she has previous playing his mum, I think.
Yes, because I know Mel Gibson has played Mark Wahlberg's dad before on film.
Daddy's Home. Yeah, Daddy's Home too.
Daddy's Home. Yeah. So then he has a look about him, and you can see how it goes. So yes, it's basically a biopic. I mean, I think if I'd been, I don't know if he was enormous. There must have been a book about him. I must have something about him, but because I couldn't really see the point of the film, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Because I thought, in terms of like biopics go, it was all right. but I couldn't understand why it was at the cinema. You know how you're watching it thinking,
yeah,
it's like I was expecting something to be. I was expecting something more. I mean, it's like this. It was a. I mean, I've read Christian biographies like this, but I thought I've never expected to see them on film because I was watching it thinking, who exactly is this film for? Because it's a bit too sweary for, you're sort of the Christian audience, and I thought it's very Catholic, so is it for Catholic people to watch? So I thought it was all right, but I was a little bit puzzled by it. Really, I was just a little bit left. It was 2 hours long. It's far too long. I mean, it needs to be at least half an hour or 45 minutes shorter. And I was.
For me, I was going to say I couldn't see Mark Wahlberg in the role, and when I watched the trailer, it just didn't interest me.
Part of me was find it because I hadn't seen the trailer. I just saw what was on, and there was two things I hadn't seen. I hadn't seen Firestarter, and I hadn't seen Father Stu. And I was gonna go see it with a friend, and she didn't want to see Father Stu. I said, "Well, I'll go see that, then we'll see Firestarter together." So I literally just watched it without having known anything about it. But yeah, it just left me really quite puzzled because I just thought, why is this at the cinema? Why is this not on the God channel with the swear word bleeped out? Because it left me a little bit cold, I have to say. Because I normally all like sort of films of like sort of Christian epiphanies and conversion stories. I'm like but I just struggled really to get it because I thought it is just a straightforward like biography of I wasn't very nice. I was a little bit bad boy. Now I'm a priest and I'm not that anymore.
Ta-da!
I'm now this great and everyone loves me. I thought, am I missing something? So I was a bit puzzled by it. I left me a little bit cold when I thought it probably wouldn't do. I didn't feel particularly moved by it. I have no desire really to find out more about him because it didn't even intrigue me enough to go, I'll find out who this man really was.
Yeah.
No. So I would basically give it a 2 and say, yeah, it was all right. But it left me a bit, it was like, it's okay, but nothing special.
So that's a 2 for Father Stu. Okay. Ooh, look at that, a 2 for Father Stu. But there was a couple of things I just wanted to say. Oh, first of all, when you were talking about him and seeing this lady that I'm going to, I just thought the phrase "flirt to convert" came around my head, which in Christian circles was actually a thing. Flirts to convert. It was a thing. It was a thing, and I'll leave you to fill in the gaps to figure out what that means. But essentially, as I said, I saw the trailer for this, and pretty much all this felt like, as you said, it felt like It felt like, as you said, a God Channel movie, because we've spoken every now and then. We do talk about Christian cinema and how there was this boom of making Christian cinema in America, but they usually don't have big name stars in them. Usually it stars that guy who was in Growing Pains, Cameron something Cameron.
Yeah,
can't remember his name, but it stars him, and it was this sort of like small niche. Or Kevin Sorbo shows up in one. I've actually, it shows up in God's Not Dead, and so this film, I was like, this is Mark Wahlberg. Mark Wahlberg is still a bona fide star, but it seems like this is one of those films that doesn't really have incidents, doesn't really have a story, and the trailer tells you everything.
I was going to say, from the trailer, he looks absolutely uselessly awful. I mean, Mark Wahlberg, he's a bit hot and cold for me. He's been in some good stuff, he's been in some, but he looks absolutely pants in this. So I don't normally do that. I will go and see a lot of things, but from that trailer, I just thought, there's no way I'm watching this movie.
Yeah, but I have to tell you though that we're going to talk about, we're going to have a little bit of a feedback on one of these other films, because recently I've been having my whole thing of saying, well, I don't have a similar Cineworld Unlimited card anymore, so I can't just sort of go to the cinema on a whim and go, okay, oh yeah, whatever. Yeah. It just took 2 hours of my life. I'm like, no, now 2 hours of my life means a lot. 2 hours of my life is worth a lot more than it was before the pandemic. And also it's going to take my money. So I can't really do that anymore. But I remember watching this and just sort of going, no, not seeing that. And your review has made me think. Essentially, the reviews we've had recently are not doing anything for my prejudices, because there's some films I've thought not going to watch it because it's going to be crap, and I like it when my prejudices get challenged and I turn out to be wrong, because then that means I can't just walk through life thinking of what's in my head. But what you said about Father Stu just now, it is reinforcing my prejudices. I think there was something that we spoke about last week that reinforced my prejudices as well. It was 2 weeks ago. It was Dumbledore, and Shaun is going to give us a little bit of a feedback about Morbius, where I kind of don't care whether you're enforcing my prejudices or not. I'm pretty sure I'm right. But before we do that, before you give us a little bit of feedback on Morbius, we're going to get to Without Remorse. Shaun, this is Without Remorse on Amazon Prime, starring Michael B. Jordan. Tell us a little bit about this. This is a Tom Clancy adaptation. That much I know. That it's set in the sort of Jack Ryan universe, but this is another character who's usually. Jack Ryan does all the thinking, this guy does all the shooting, pretty much. So tell us about this.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, okay, this movie is pretty standard Cold Warfare. We don't want a war with the Russians, or we do want a war with the Russians.
Oh, topical.
Some people do, and some people don't, and it's all like, where does this go? So basically, the plot is, you got this Navy SEAL that was part of a group that starts off with and slowly the people that were in this group are getting killed off. And then you get some government CIA agents and what have you, and he's got a wife, Michael B. Jordan. He's got his wife, and some Russian agents come in, and they're the ones that are bumping off these Navy SEALs. And It just so happens that he, well, it's not going to be really a spoiler, I don't think.
No, come on, Shaun. It's an action movie.
Yeah, it's an action movie. So
this guy needs an excuse. He needs an excuse to go out there and kill a whole bunch of people. So the second you said he has a wife, I was thinking, oh yeah, she's not here. She's not long for this world.
So it's quite brutal in that respect. It's got some brutal moments in it, and the action is pretty standard fare. I did like the way he was Without Remorse, and he did some. He was pretty nasty how he went about getting stuff. Reminded me a little bit of
Man on Fire,
the Liam Neeson film where he does
Taken
to get information. Taken, that's it. But anyway, it ends up it's like the government thing. The CIA get involved, and they have to do this mission to Russia. But of course, they can't be seen to be doing this mission in Russia, because if they get killed on Russian soil or whatever, the Russians, and we're going to have the war. And of course, you've got these people, playing different roles, and you think, yes, I know you're the bad guy at the moment, but I know where this is going. You're actually the good guy, but the bad guy. Do you know what I mean? And it's
I know exactly what you mean. It's a bit like
what they're going to be, and they're playing the part of oh, he's the villain, and you think, well, you know what? He's not the villain, even though he's playing it.
It's a bit like Pedro Pascal in The Equalizer 2.
Equally, yeah.
Where it gets to the point where they're like, ta-da! You're like, yeah, this was obvious from the first second he showed up.
So that's basically it. It's an action movie, and the action's fairly good. You've got, there's some good action pieces, but it's silly. It's silly that, and they wouldn't do those things even to be, that. Again, that's my issues with the stuff, because I just don't think governments would be that silly to try and do it, even if they did want to start a conflict or not start a conflict or whatever. It's just like, you just wouldn't do that. That is just so super, super, super risky. That's just like the most riskiest thing you are. You're gonna, the chances of success must be minimal, and yet you're still going to go ahead with it. And of course it's all good in the end.
So it ruins the credibility for you.
Yeah, that's it. So it's predictable. They try to put in red herrings, which basically you can tell they're red herrings from the start. You know what I mean? It's like
I know exactly what you mean.
It's not like subtle ones. It's just like, oh no.
Exactly what you mean is you're like,
good
look,
cop, bad cop sort of thing. You know,
you're like this isn't 1981 anymore, all right? We've seen a lot of films. We know how these things go. It's like, oh, this guy, he's a Navy SEAL. He has a wife. Oh God, we know what's going to happen here. It's like.
Yeah, it was something that, you know, you could put on and just do other things, you know what I mean? You could sort of leave it on in the background and think, oh, that's right, and just sort of pop your head up.
So is the film actually set in the 90s?
I don't actually know. I couldn't actually work it out.
Okay,
yeah, I think the 90s. It must be 90s, really. 90s.
Does anybody in this film have a smartphone? That's a telltale sign. If they have a smartphone, it's not the 90s.
Do you know what, Tosin? I can't honestly remember. I can't honestly remember.
Okay, because when you're talking about Cold War, I know that because it's Tom Clancy, he was writing all these things during the 80s and the 90s and all that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm trying to figure out if they tried to update it or if they just left it as a time capsule, time period piece. All right, cool. So how many stars?
I didn't really notice it. It wasn't that engrossing, if you know what I mean. It was pretty standard fare when it's like, okay.
Shaun is like, I was doing something else in the background. I was making my dinner.
Yeah.
So how many stars would you give it?
2.
2 stars. 2 stars.
But Michael B. Jordan, I quite liked him. I quite liked him.
I think the thing is Michael B. Jordan. He has shown in the last couple of years. I mean, I would say since Creed, he's shown that like if he can carry an action thing. You give him something action, no problem, he can carry it. And then he cemented that with Black Panther, and you're like, okay, yeah. This guy can believably kick people's butts. That's the thing. You believe him in that. So he's kind of like that, almost like a sort of modern action hero. So 2 stars for Without Remorse. So we have come to the point where we have to figure out who won this week, and then we will go from a little bit of a feedback on some of the other films that you guys were talking about. So who do you think won this week, Netflix or cinema?
I think it'd be Netflix hands down. Really, that's my feeling.
Yep.
Yes, I think, streaming.
And you would both be correct. Streaming has won because we've had on streaming 2 4s and a 2, and at cinemas 2 3s and a 2. So that's it. Okay, so now we're going to talk about there's a couple of things that Shaun, you went to see Morbius. We want to hear a little bit about that.
Morbius because everybody was saying nobody wanted to see it, and
none of us were going to see it. Morbius, and we needed the professional, we needed the grown up in the room, which is Shaun, saying I don't care if I'm going to enjoy this film. It's a film, I'm going to watch it. So we had that. So we want to hear about that, and also Sharon, you said there was something else you saw at home that we want to have a quick. Last letter from your lover. I want to have a quick thing about that, and I just wanted to mention. Everything Everywhere All at Once. If you are intrigued and you want to go see the madness, it is not actually, ironically, Everything Everywhere and All at Once is not on everything. It's not on everywhere all at once. It seems like this is a very limited release because I'm gonna guess that it's not in the cinema on the Isle of Wight. No. I'm gonna guess that Shaun, you have to see that in Bournemouth. Because
I saw that in Bournemouth. Yes,
because I live between 2 big cities, Birmingham and Worcester. I had to either travel into Birmingham, I had to drive for half an hour to watch this film, and this is the thing that I had to pay £12.99 to watch it. Yeah, I know, £12.99 to watch it because this film is not on everywhere. No. You might have to travel a while to actually see it. I'm thinking they might be trying to do like a small release and then a bigger release later. But anyway, enough of that. And let's go. Let's go with Last Letter from Your Lover. A minute on Last Letter from Your Lover, Sharon. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, based on a book by Jojo Moyes. It's a journalist, modern day, Felicity Jones. Comes across when she's doing an investigative piece for her magazine that she writes for. Comes across a letter written in the 1960s that basically intrigued her enough to look into investigate it, and which led to other letters, which basically you see these 2 stories told in parallel. This love affair between a married woman and an unmarried man in the 1960s, and then her modern day counterpart, basically, who's looking into that old romance and then evaluating her own life and her own romantic choices. And so They did 60s romantic is played by Shailene Woodley, and the modern is Felicity Jones. So you see these two parallel lives, and the choices people make, how they determine whether you live a life, happiness, or with a life of misery, basically, to boil it down to its most simplistic terms. So yeah, I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. I like these dual timeline sort of dramas. I think they're quite entertaining. They keep you gripped because you swap between the two, and each sort of scene that unfolds, like a chapter unfolds, as in the book, gives you a little bit more information and then sort of changes your perspective slightly. So yeah, I enjoyed it. I thought it was a good watch. Definite 3-star. I enjoyed it. Yeah, definitely worth an afternoon watching that at home.
That's one of those films. Sorry, Karen.
I'm gonna say feet up for me. It'd be like a glass of milk and a couple of biscuits, and I'm happy.
I remember when this film was released, and this is one of those films where you mentioned the title, and I'm like, hang on, that rings a bell. And you say Felicity Jones, and I was like, oh yeah, I remember when that came out. Well, I was never gonna watch it. And there's like, I'll probably catch it with, like, essentially, as you said, feet up kind of thing. All right, cool. So a good 3-star for that. And now next week, Holly is going to be back, and Holly is the one that has said that she wants to hear about Morbius. So Shaun, give us a quick blast about Morbius, because I think we're going to talk about it more next week.
Okay, the quick blast about Morbius. So everybody,
all I want to know is that I was right in not seeing this film.
Okay, well, everybody slated this film. They hammered this film. It was really, really bad. I thought, well, normally when people do that, I don't mind it too much. It was like the Phantom Menace. I didn't mind that too much. I thought, oh, okay, so I reckon this is going to be all right. But it wasn't. It was just like, oh my goodness me. That was awful. Yeah, it was just like not interesting. I had no empathy, no sympathy with the character. I had absolutely nothing going. It was dull. He was dull. You had, I suppose, a saving grace was you had Matt Smith.
Thank you, Shaun, for taking one for the team.
Yeah, that's it. You are the grown-up. You are the grown-up around here.
I must say that the character that Matt Smith played was much, much more interesting. All right, he was totally hamming it up. Really over the top. But I don't think he was taking it seriously. But seriously bad movie, right? And I went thinking, I'm gonna like this film. I know I'm gonna like this film. Everybody hates it, and then I can go on and I can tell the guys, no, it's not that bad. No, it's not that bad. And you know what? It is that bad.
I love the fact,
awful, dull, boring, and a load of rubbish.
I love the fact.
I would give it. Oh, I'm lucky. I suppose Matt Smith's saving grace, it'd be 2 stars. But,
I love the fact Shaun is essentially just said, I went in there with my expectations on the floor, and this film limboed under them. It limboed right.
So yeah, awful movie.
Oh, okay. You see, this is what I'm talking about. This is what I'm talking about, my prejudices. This is not helping my prejudices one bit. Because I'm thinking, yeah, I was right. I thought it was going to be crap. And look, it was crap. So anyway.
Yeah,
Shaun,
there is one, the end credit. The end credit. Yeah, the end credit. The end credit is quite interesting. Not good, but it's like, but the credits at the end of the movie.
Yeah, the credit. No, the thing is, like, I care so little about this film that I went and I looked up exactly what happens in the end credits.
Well,
and essentially, this is the problem, because Sony are trying so hard to take all the characters that are related to Spider-Man, and they're trying to make this cinema work, and they're trying to tie it to Marvel. The fact that on the poster of Morbius it says a new Marvel legend is born is, for me, so distasteful, so dishonest, because this is not a Marvel film, but they're trying so hard to tie it to Marvel because they're just hoping to grab some of that money. And it makes everything that Sony does with superheroes just makes me hate it, because it's cynical, it's horrible, and when I read up about these end credits things, they make 0 sense.
Yes.
They make 0 sense. They're trying to tie this thing to the Marvel universe, and it makes no sense. No, 0 sense. It's just them trying to put something together and go, oh, will this work? Okay, cool. Maybe people will give us more money now. And I hate it. I hate that thing. I hate even Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. As many problems as I had with that, they're still trying to build a world.
Yes,
they're still trying to have some integrity in their storytelling. They're still trying to make this thing coherent. And Sony are just a bunch of money-grabbing idiots who are trying to do whatever it is. They have no clue, number one, what's going to make people give them their money, but they're trying to do whatever it is to get people to give them the money. And I do not like it. And Sony's stuff with Sony need to do the right thing. They need to do the decent thing, and need to let Marvel have their characters back.
Yeah, they should do. They should do. Really, they should totally.
Yeah,
they're not, I don't think they're going to. They're going to keep hoping, aren't they?
They're going to keep hoping, and they're going to keep saying that how much money they can make, because Venom, even though Venom was it still made enough money for them to make a second one. And so, because they don't care about storytelling, they care about money.
No.
And it's depressing. It's depressing. And on that cherry note, I think until next week when I have no clue what will be in cinemas, it's a goodbye from me.
It's a goodbye from me.
And it's a goodbye from me.
Thank you for staying with us until this ranty end.